My name is Shankar Poncelet. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I live in the United States, but I am not originally from the US. Nevertheless, I have seen great success in this country. Everything I have achieved here in the United States, obviously an English-speaking nation, was based on being a good and clear communicator. And quite obviously, I do have an accent. And I can guarantee you it has never mattered. As a matter of fact, I think it was actually an advantage often. I want you to think about the difference of experience that someone has with a foreign language when they live maybe somewhere in Europe, in Africa, or in an Asian country versus a United States citizen or maybe someone who lives in the UK or in Australia. So let's take my example. I lived in Luxembourg, a small country landlocked by France, Germany and Belgium, up until 2011. At that point, I was 28 years old. And during my time in Luxembourg, whenever someone who was a foreigner came to Luxembourg and spoke the language, tried to speak our language, they had a very strong and thick accent. But the perspective that we had was that very few people actually make the effort to speak our language. So we get super focused on how this person speaks. Do they have an accent? Do they not have an accent? So it's something that we become very aware of. Conversely, when we then learn a language, and for a lot of us that is English, we have this accent and we are hyper focused on our own accent because in a country where very few people come and master the language when they are foreigners, we are just hyper focused on that. So what happens is we learn the English language and we feel that if the pronunciation is not perfect, we're going to be judged for that. People are going to draw conclusions because of our accent. But I can guarantee you that is absolutely not the case. I will say though, you need to find within you that feeling of safety, that feeling of confidence, that by you being as Americans call it, ESL, people who have English as a second language, you actually have a lot of things going for you that will portray you in a very powerful light. Now, there is a difference between not mastering a language, not speaking coherently, and having an accent. You can have perfect English, but you're not a good communicator. However, most people who go through the lengths of learning English are typically very good communicators because they had to work a lot with the language. They had to learn the vocabulary, they had to learn the rules. Why do we use the past simple over the past perfect? Americans don't know that rule necessarily. Most of them won't know, which leads me into one of the reasons why you should be very proud of your accent, why you should feel very confident about your accent, is because here in the United States, people know that if you master another language, you are smart because you had to go through a learning process that they never had to. Just picture you live in a country, you live in a world where everybody speaks your language. Everybody makes the effort to speak your language. And you don't have to go through any efforts to learn someone else's language. That is the reality of Americans and of British people, of Australians, New Zealanders. So they are super impressed with the fact that you do know another language, which is an indicator of your accent, of course. So whenever you open your mouth, instead of feeling that you're being judged negatively, know that people think, wow, this person is smart. Reason number one. Reason number two, women really like your accent. But for the longest time, I tried to hide my accent, sound like a Texan, because I live in Texas, until I was told, just keep your European accent. It's really, really nice to hear that. And it works not only in the dating scene, it also works in business. I can tell you that when I go to a conference or a business meeting and I speak, people listen up. They like my accent. It makes my conversation more colorful. It makes it more interesting. So it is a plus. It is not something you need to hide. It is something that you can let come out because it just makes what you say less boring. Not that what you say is boring, but sometimes, when we are in business and we talk about all of our techie things or our knowledge that requires jargon and business terminology, it's just more interesting when you have a little bit of an accent with it. So you are less boring, you sound smart, and of course, it is your true authenticity. We talk so much about being authentic on social media and how powerful that is. And then we try to hide it? No. As a matter of fact, if you are multilingual, a polyglot, as some people say, why don't you brag with that a little bit? You can do as me and just switch into German. Hallo liebe Leute, wie geht es Ihnen denn heute? Wie finden Sie denn mein Video? And then you can spontaneously jump into French. Mais bien sûr que vous aimez cette vidéo parce que vous apprenez quelque chose qui est très utile pour votre profession. And then you can jump into another language, Luxembourgisch. Ja, mein lieb Lützeburgisch Freund, ein Spruch geht ganz weit. Wieder gesehen, hier am Texas benutzen ich sie auch ganz einst für mich zu bretzen. Yes, my dear friends, and then you can go into English. You can maybe mention that you basically understand most of the written Dutch and Spanish and Portuguese and Italian as it is with me. So, can you see now how impressive it is to have English as a second language and to embrace your accent? My dear friends, please do not try to hide your accent. Please change your mindset, grow in confidence, and know that I have realized my American business dream, a very prosperous dream, using my language and clear, precise communication. Again, being a good communicator is something very different from being someone with an accent. But both can totally coexist and usually do. And if that is the case, then, my dear friends, the world is your oyster.